Community and External Scrutiny Committee. I'm Councillor Matt Campbell, Chair of the committee, and we'll introduce the other members of the committee shortly. This is our first meeting in the new council chamber, which has been designed to be more accessible and provide better facilities for members and the public. We have committee members in the Civic Centre along with officer support. The meeting is being live streamed by YouTube and will be available on the council's website. Some housekeeping for those in the Civic Centre. There are no fire drills planned, and if the alarm goes off, please leave by the emergency exits at the front and rear of the room and congregate on the car park. Please turn mobile phones off and switch your microphones off when you're not speaking. For those joining us via Microsoft Teams, please remain muted and indicate at the appropriate time when you would like to speak, and I will bring you in. We're very grateful to our guests for attending this special meeting, which I'll mention more in a moment. Please could I ask each member of the committee to introduce themselves, followed by officers.
Good evening. My name is Councillor Leslie Pritchard. I'm a ward member for Lostock Hall. Thank you.
Good evening. My name's Joan Burrows. I'm the officer.
Good evening. My name's Elaine Stringfellow. I'm Councillor for Lostock Hall as well.
Good evening. My name's Lou Jackson and I'm Councillor for Earnshaw.
Evening, I'm Hayden Williams, I'm Councillor for Leyland Central.
Hello, I'm Darren Cranshaw, Head of Democratic Services.
Ben Story, Democratic Service Officer.
Thank you, everybody. As well as Chair, I'm also Councillor for Walton-le-Dale West. So item 1, apologies for absence. We've received apologies from Councillor Keith Martin, who is joining us via Teams and has been substituted by Councillor Elaine Stringfellow. Welcome to the committee, Councillor Stringfellow. Councillor Lillis is running late but should be with us shortly, hopefully. Item 2, declarations of interest. Has anybody got any interest to declare? No, thank you. Item 3, minutes of the last meeting. Members are asked to approve the minutes of the last meeting, which was held on Monday, 23rd of June 2025. Everybody happy to approve? Yes, thank you very much. Item 4, recommendations update. Members are asked to consider and feedback on the responses made to previous recommendations. It is suggested that those recommendations complete or recommended for removal be taken off the tracker. Everybody had a chance to review them and are happy to remove those. Thank you very much. Item 5, access to benefits, advice and support. Thank you very much to Andrea Andrews, Nick Hyam and Owen Roberts for attending this meeting today. Thank you very much for giving up your time. Sophie Wilding from the Community Network and Outreach Service was due to join us, but unfortunately she's unwell, so she's given her apologies. Could I just ask you to introduce yourselves and give us a brief introduction into your organisation? Thank you.
I'm Owen Roberts. I'm the Chief Exec of Unified Credit Union. We're a non-profit savings and lending. Our purpose is to try and create financial resilience within the community. Work within Leyland, so South Ribble, Chorley, Wigan, Lee and Warrington.
Good evening, I'm Nick Hyam. I'm the Operations Manager for Citizens Advice Lancashire West, which some of you will know we have an office upstairs here. We're an independent charity and we have no particular agenda. We help anybody with anything that we can.
I'm Andrea Andrews. I'm the Community Services Manager for Key Unlocking Futures and I run the base on Broadfield, 2 community centres and a garden.
Thank you very much for that introduction, really appreciate it. We'll move into questions if that's okay. What impact is the cost of living challenges having on our residents in South Ribble? I'd like to take that one.
I think we could all have had a brief conversation already. It's hitting everyone, not just the people that we would expect. We think that it's only going to get worse, especially for those that are working and earn just under the threshold of being able to access benefits. We're hearing there's a lot of people worried. Would you agree with that? And there's a lot of people that don't know what support is available. A lot of them assume that they're not entitled to anything either because they're just earning just under that threshold. So yeah.
I think we have a slightly unique perspective because what we see is people actually sort of borrowing to cover the cost of living. So what we're seeing is that their income, which is predominantly driven by benefits, meeting other basics of their spending. So what we're starting to see is if we don't get to meet clients on loan sharking, so there's a prevalence of loan sharking in where really one of our strong purposes is to try and intervene and to stop that happening, because once you end up in that cycle, you're caught in that cycle for life. So what we're trying to do is create resilience. It's very hard because resilience often savings. So if you have, there's a piece of research done by I think the University of Bristol, that you have £2,000 savings, you are highly unlikely to end up in financial trouble. But anything under that, becoming more likely. If you think about what we're seeing, a huge number of lesson on and the ability to build those things limited. Talking about cost of living that exceeds. That's really where we've got to try and get to.
Thank you very much for them responses. Can I bring in Councillor Burrows? Yeah?
So just hearing what you're saying, I'm not preempting. So how are you going to have your services, the residents? I live in Middlesex. Any adverts, services, particularly the credit union, when I was working in many years ago, I used to actually be a saver. Because I knew by saving, I was giving the credit union access. So they could buy a washing machine instead of going the lenders and getting in. So I didn't know about your. For somebody like me, and I'm sure there's a lot of other people in the end of this, a lot of people that would welcome your services, because when I look at the data that the Citizens Advice Bureau has provided, my ward, Middlefirth, ranks. So the first ward that seems to be having a high percentage of approaching services is 7 stars. The second one is Broadfield. Well, actually, where do they live? Clients were coming in joint. But we rank 3rd with your inquiry. So it's quite important that library. Pardon?
I'm glad you asked that question because it's the biggest problem that we face. So I took over as chief executive over a year ago, and that was really the biggest problem we're confronting. And historically, what we're trying to do is create a presence from a branch on Sandgate, so opposite Tesco, a red front door with a Unify logo. Nobody comes through the front door because they don't really know what we do. The big shift that we've made is getting out in the community. So we've effectively said to our branch manager, rather than sit and wait for someone to come through the door, the phrase my operations director uses, take the front door to them. We've been doing a lot of work around how do we create a presence where people already are. And it was enormously satisfying to hear that we've been working with us on it, and we are creating that presence. About awareness comes from meeting exactly where you want to meet, talk about services we offer. On the savers side, the best way to do it is to work with workplaces, so to work with the council to say, become a saver where your savings come out of your salary, so automatic saving. We get great stories from there of built up savings. So your point isn't probably our biggest challenge. Do great things, we're just not known for doing it. That's the push that we've got to get.
Sorry, I don't want to hog this question. But the other thing is, sorry, I see interesting, but I actually, but Middleford Ward, people to by car. So, Middleford Ward, it's very easy for people to walk up fishing. I'm just wondering whether you're going to, don't know, ask of identical. The other one are more nearer to that. But right on the cross from the people walk across into the cross might, especially if you bring in.
I think that is the best example of where we've failed, is exactly that, waiting to get on the bus and bring your kids down to deals on the hours they're open versus get out and go there. Yeah. We're bound by geography, so credit unions all have kind of operating, but if, I'll double check, but I'm pretty certain I know the rates next to us in Preston, they're friends. There should never be a point where you can't access credit union websites or websites to credit union. We're present everywhere. But we really need to do that work to make ourselves known. So you don't even have to go across the bridge to Preston. We're in the community. That's the challenge I've seen, is get out there and really, there's two sides to it. It's not just about us talking, it's about us listening. We want to provide sense to the people in our community, and what we have to do here, going on with, since the services are digital space that way, really important. Bit of change, shift from we're here if you're going to come and find you, and going to hear challenges.
Thing is, so the other thing is for the nice people, you don't want to lose out on your. Some of them could be that South Ripple thing.
Well, we do citizens' advice across England, funded to work in your area. So people who go to Preston will refer back to us for the support. These people don't get lost. Still pick them up and work with them if they want to.
No problem. Thank you. Can I bring in Councillor Jackson?
Hello, I'd just like to say thank you very much for coming to talk to us. I'd like to direct my conversation to credit union and how wonderful the ethos is of the credit union. And historically, how the West Indian communities, they got together and a group of people, they saved each week, and then one person would, one nominated person, and they go round, take the money, but they made the contribution for the next person to take money. So I think it's wonderful how the credit union came out of that. But also, when you talk about promoting, you can't get people to doors, and this might be helpful to you, Councillor Burrows, and all our councillors, and especially at campaign time, or when I'm out with my residents. I always keep some of your picture. And especially when we're campaigning, we're going from door to door, we put your letters through, especially, say, for my ward, thinking of Manor House Close or Robin Hay. So reaching the people who really require it. So we can always build on that, and that's one little bit of promotion we will continue to do. In fact, I've been back to the credit union at times and there's been no leaflets, give them all out.
That's
So,
the kind of success that we want. But that's the kind of success we need, is to get those leaflets. I think we're on this kind of this transformation process about firstly making our presence felt. Get out and tell people that there is a credit union. We were talking earlier, I think the name puts people off slightly, because whenever I explain what I do, I run a credit union. What's that? It's a bank. Why don't you just call it community? I will. That's one of the sort of branding challenges we've got, because that's what we are. First job is getting out and telling the community bank is not for profit, and also it's very inclusive. But what you said about it builds a savings habit. You're going to be a member of the credit union. It starts with saving, even £1, builds that savings. Building that. Then we try and make that transition just being talked about when we're there to what you're talking about. Can we create an advocacy of what we do? So that there is a credit union, what they do. Let me tell you about them. That comes best from. But, are you a member of the credit union? Talks more strongly than So build up that momentum. But we're coming from a standing start, effectively.
and just to finish off, for my casework, there's been a number of occasions more to the credit union, and I am a member of the credit union myself.
Can I bring Councillor Pritchard in?
Yeah, thank you very much. You've answered part of my question, which, well, it wasn't a question, it was an observation really about the name credit union. I think community bank is the right way to describe it. I joined a credit union via my employer, and I've just actually retired, so I'm not a member. I will be joining Unify. I was a member for about 15 years, and in that time I was able to talk to people about what benefits I received. And I think people receive information from trusted friends. It's of a lot more value to them rather than just hear about something. And I wondered whether or how many employers in South Ribble that you were able or have been able to connect with, and whether there was a way of you engaging with the skills factory at South Ribble, which works with, I think there's over 100 employers that are listed within the skills factory. There seems to, and I wasn't sure whether you were aware of that, or but the first question would be really, how many employers are you currently engaging with? Thank you.
Our biggest employer partner is Leyland Trucks, but they're a perfect example of difficult work. Is that the first job you've got to do is get the organisation to appreciate the value of the credit union and almost kind of make you an approved supplier. But then you have to persuade employees that there's value in what we do. So they were really good. They invited us to an open day, but then just from their open day, you can see the scale of, if I'm there with some stress balls and some pens, I'm just another person from another organisation. That advocacy about internal process. So we have to break the back of that. But I would love to work with that. Ultimately, knock a lot more of these workplaces, because they do two things. They create this safe bit within workplace, but Councillor Laura said, also provides the liquidity of the credit union. That's the money that we lend out. So it allows us to do more lending, be more inclusive, the more workplace partners we have.
Can I bring in Councillor Jackson?
What would you say the benefit take-up is like in South Ribble? What are the barriers to residents accessing benefits? I think you touched on that. Are there any gaps in benefits advice and support in South Ribble? And what more could be done to encourage benefit take-up?
Yeah, I think we can all speak on this one. There are enough services available to help people. I mentioned before the ones that need the help the most are, for a number of reasons, the ones that can't access. And that could be, for example, for myself on Broadfield, it's lack of literacy skills. We have so many that cannot read and write, so a leaflet is no good to them. They need us to have that conversation to explain to them what's available, what support they can get. There's addiction, there's mental health, there's the ostrich effect, you know, which so many people have, you know, that little piece of life admin that to us is simple, but for them it's completely overwhelming. There's also still a stigma around asking for help and support as well. Even with the community shops, well, it's not for me, I'm not eligible, because there's so much around eligibility. When I mentioned before, you know, a lot of our families are working families, but they own just that bit too much to be able to get that support. So, and also opening times, you know, not everyone's available to go to a meeting or an appointment between 9 and 5. And if they need to take time off work, they're then worrying about, am I going to be penalised? Am I going to get into trouble? I'm saving my leave for the school holidays. So I think there should be some form of service that can address that can be more flexible for our working families, because it's not all those that are on benefits. We get a lot of people coming through to us at the base for help with form filling. So it could be anything, PIP, everything and anything. But we're overwhelmed because we only have 2 of us on a Thursday and it's dropping. So we would love to look into, is the funding available to train people, and that could be your staff as well. I know you're overwhelmed, which is why I'm not mentioning that, to have clinics, for want of a better word, because I don't know if you've heard of ICANN, but ICANN used to be fantastic at supporting people, for applying for benefits, for, you know, that life admin, filling forms in, but they don't have the funding anymore. That the funding that they get can be for specific areas, and they're not funded. So where do these people go? Because Citizens Advice Bureau are also completely overwhelmed, and you know, I have waiting times, waiting lists. Yeah. So it is a massive struggle, isn't it?
I'll just jump in. So we worked with yourselves as a council late last year, where we did a push on pension credit, and council wrote out to everyone they were aware of that should have been entitled. Take up was virtually non-existent, but nobody knows why. You know, is it apathy? Is it people thinking, oh, I won't get that? No, I'm not even going to consider talking to. But also, I mean, we do hear notional evidence that people saying, well, you know, I had a benefit check for pension credit and it said I was only going to get £1 a month or £1 a week, but it wasn't worth it. But it is worth it because other benefits then knock on and become available. And the difficulty is trying to get this information over to people in the medium that they use and they interact with. We do a lot of work, or I do a lot of work with our data around age groups and how they contact us. You know, young people sub-30s tend to contact us via email or web chat. You know, then you get the sort of the middle ground up to 50 plus who like to use the telephone, and then generally those in advancing years that actually like to see people face to face because they've either got eyesight issues or they've got hearing loss. So using a computer is, you know, difficult for them, and hearing on the telephone is difficult for them. But it's, you know, how do we, you know, we're just a charity. It's how do we engage with all these people in their own ways?
Just one thought that came in, and we discussed it quite at length about the application form. How it is, how long it is, and how long it takes to fill it out. In fact, I think it was one of your representatives as we came to the base. We were discussing that. So I think it's more of a national thing then, that they must look to make it more accessible to people who need it. Because like you say, it's a gateway to other services.
I think when you look at the forms, any form that's produced by the government, they are long and complex. But if you've got the skills, pension credit one in particular is whatever it is, 48 pages or something, of which probably 30 pages are of no relevance to the vast majority of people. Because, they won't have overseas savings and other things that there'll be a lot of actually jump to question 20, jump to question 30. Now, people don't have confidence to do that because they worry that they're going to do something wrong or they miss something, so somebody will stamp it declined and send it back. We see that all the time. There's some forms we get asked to complete that are really quite simple if you've got the ability to sit and concentrate on it. And we find people don't have. My experience, we live in a far different world now than we lived in 2019. People's expectations are different, people's wants are different, and of course we started with the cost of living crisis, which from our point of view, and I'm sure my friends here will agree, is showing no signs of going away. It's going to be with us for another good few years yet, and we've still got uncertainty in the energy market, so that's volatile when it comes to your monthly payment, and we're still seeing people that are going into a negative budget that probably 2 years ago weren't. Because obviously, we all know everything goes up every year, but your wages don't go up in tandem. So you've got to try and make savings somewhere. But I'm going off target. Apologies for that.
Sorry, another thing that has had, we discussed it briefly earlier, a big impact on a lot of people is the migration over to universal credit, and the fact that people are paid, their payment dates are all different. So they've gone from being paid weekly to now being paid monthly, and we need to work with these people on budgeting skills, on how they suddenly go from having money on a weekly basis to then on a monthly basis, and sometimes longer, and it does work if they're willing to engage, but and there again, it's working with people face to face. So one of the questions we were asked was about, how do we advertise, how do we communicate? And word of mouth is one of the strongest, and it's having those boots on the ground, little pop-up, call them stalls for want of a better word, where we're talking to community members, we're explaining what services are on offer, and making them feel as reassured as possible that there is support out there. Because leaflets are great, but leaflets are great to hand over once you've explained what the leaflet is about, and what it contains, and explain what support is available to that person. Because you have to build up a level of trust anyway. You're going to get anyone to engage with you, there needs to be that level of trust. So yeah, we've seen, I don't know whether you have a big impact on the continuing migration of the sea.
I think just to echo that, budgeting generally is the issue we want to build towards, is working in partnership with people. We don't just want to turn up and talk about savings and lending. What we talk about is financial. We don't want to tread on toes of advice, but we want to provide that supplementary.
Yes.
that ability to talk about where are your finances, because something that doesn't get talked about often is debt levels. So there's stats, but stats I think only tell half the story, because it's really about there's segments within our community very visibly are heavily in debt. They're the ones who are really struggling, and they're very, very at risk at that moment. We also have people and they're borrowing from different sources, and typically fairly high cost borrowing, where they're just servicing that. And it's one vet's bill go over from about managing into this beginning of crisis, spiral out of control. I think that for us is what we're enormously passionate about. We've got to get our name out there as one who work with you, get things under control again when they're spiraling out of control, and to do that at a scale that makes it. At the same time, benefits side of things goes back to what we see at spiraling debt level. Cost of living plus cost of debt far exceed where people did some work in Wigan where we could work with the council and cross-trained each other a little on, well, this is what the credit union was going to their station team to talk about the credit union. Similarly, if someone was talking to the credit union, we were able to signpost. That worked terrifically well, because say the dialogue isn't, in our world, it isn't alone, it's going. At the same time, how do we help? Because then, long before you get to complicated forms, would that put correct amount?
Can I bring in Councillor Burrows?
Yeah. Organisation. Oh, sorry. On. Oh, sorry. I'll start again. I know that you've spoken quite a lot. But the question was around, could you talk us through the support that you have on our church? And just picking up what you said about and the debt advance. Am I understanding that between yourself and the city that you work together at the case? And could I just say as well, if you're going to pick up debt advance after you've just given a summary of your could you tell me whether that support then, that advance, whether it actually end up support service houses, one or two?
When it comes to working together, we have a system called ReferNet, something that the council supported us on for the last probably 5 years. It's a referral system. It's not a database. It's a secure online referral system that we have a number of agencies across South Ribble who are part of it, and that allows us to make referrals rather than picking a phone up and trying to give someone's personal details over the phone for a referral and something being written down wrong, or an email being sent and email isn't really that secure. We have this nice secure system that both these organisations are part of that we can send into referrals between us. So people, can be referred for the help and can get that help quickly. Now, I've forgotten where I was going. The rest of that. What was the next part of your question?
Sorry, I just tagged on to that debt support about people that might find offering support that way, particularly CAB. And then my main question, you've given us a lot of information but if you pick list.
So we don't support people in court. We're quite a thinly spread organisation at the best of times. We don't have volunteers because, as you know, we're primarily a volunteer-led organisation. And we don't have volunteers with the skills for things like that. Depending if it's about you know, somebody who's under a Section 8 or a Section 21, depending which court they're being heard at, Shelter generally pick those up and they have a duty solicitor available to provide advice to the client at the time. We just help people the best we can, you know, whether it's completing a benefit form, whether it's completing a mandatory reconsideration or an appeal. We have a specialist who actually creates the appeals documents when it comes down to things like PIP or attendance allowance. And we have a very good success rate. I'll shout about it all the time. We're 98, 99% success in getting people their benefits. But we will help with anything. Doesn't matter what somebody comes through the door with, we will try and help them. You know, that's what we do. That's our speciality. We don't focus on one area, which is why we can't sort of spend the time to go out and begin in the courts, things like that, because we're then taking it away from the people who are queuing up to get in on a drop-in day that need the help.
In my past life, I worked for for 5 years. I ran it. We were
Right. Yeah, not anymore because of the way the debt sort of contracts are funded across the country. That's not what the Money and Pension Service wants. At the moment, they just want as many people as possible getting access to support, you know, and then being able to help themselves, which is difficult because we tend to find, I don't, you know, whether you're saying that the people who are in the sort of the worst debt probably are not best placed to try and get themselves out of it. You know, they've gone into debt generally for a reason, and being able to cope with that is very difficult for them.
If I can kind of describe what we do, then articulate what we don't. At the moment, we've been very transactional, very branch-based. In draw cash, you can pay cash in, you can apply for a loan, you can. That's a bank. That's not a non-profit, community-minded organisation. So that was really one of the first things I felt very strongly about. We've got to kind of break this transactional nature of our business, start to become far more engaged with members. Remember, on the other side of it, if debt advice, you heavily regulated on advice, we go through a lot to do that. So our real challenge is to be able to do things like budgeting, which you do sensibly from a perspective of a credit union without getting involved in advice and budget. We can then do a lot of signposting, direct you towards this. That's where we're trying to build towards, isn't it? That we're the one-stop shop for all of your financial being, with hopefully the start point, midpoint station. That work in progress. Break this cycle of being a bank and doing lending and great savings, just financial services products, to being engaged. This is about financial well-being, but we have to put a hand off. But it's a slightly non-answer is we're building towards it. About what we build towards isn't debt advice and debt support. It's hand off it, crucially, not into the private sector. On that, there's lots of perils and for people who are in any way vulnerable, financial services led by people who don't have best interest. So what we're always focused on, we're going to build a pathway. It is private sector based service, whether that's debt advice or whether that's lending. It's important that we build that ability.
We work slightly differently because we react to what our community, and could be ever changing. But one of the things that our community tells us is that they want access to free or affordable food. So we run a free community cafe twice a week, and we serve hot food and hot drinks to whoever wants to come in. So on a Monday, we usually average anywhere between 100 to 200 people. And on a Wednesday, similar. But it's not just about the food. For the older members of the community, it's a chance for them to meet people. It addresses social isolation, a chance for parents to come together and for the kids in particular. I started the cafe because I noticed that the children were hungry. So I did a before and after school cafe, but then it expanded from there. So that's the community cafe side of things. We also run a community shop. So we were the first in South Ribble to have the community shop model. So one step up from a food bank, because our members pay £2.50 and then they choose whatever items they want, so that they have a choice. So we provide fruit and vegetables, which are free, so they're not included in those 10 items. So it gives them, they feel that they're contributing because they're paying the £2.50. It takes away the stigma of accessing a food bank, and it allows them, gives them that choice. We currently have 624 members. They don't all come. We average around 100 per week, but it goes up some weeks depending on what people need. Again, it's used as a social thing as well for people together. We also we have a free community laundrette. So we've got 2 washers, 2 dryers that are available for anyone to come and use, and that could be because they can't afford to run a dryer, the wash machine's broken, they can't afford to replace it. Could be for whatever reason. So we supply all of the washing pods and fabric conditioner for them, so they just come with the bag. It's not service wash, so they do have to do it themselves, but it is there and it's available for them. We talked about drop-in, that's drop-in support. First of all, we see the person and not the problem. So they come to us with absolutely anything. It could be that they're struggling with the mental health and they just want to chat. We do signpost, we do work in partnership with lots of different organisations because we're not experts. I only have 2 members of staff and then 22 volunteers. So I rely heavily on that support because there's only 3 of us. We support over 400 families. And they come to us with absolutely anything. It isn't just about finance. It isn't just about benefits. It could be, like I said, the ostrich effect, where put your head in the sand and not deal with those life admin issues because you've got anxiety or you've got kids at home and loads of different reasons. So we tend to try and do as much wraparound support for the families on Broadfield and Leyland. We do try and cap it. We're never going to turn anyone away, but we're with limited resources, limited capability. So we do try. We don't have any criteria for any of our services. But our community shop, they do have to have a Leyland postcode. But we will ring New Day Church up because they have the same shop model as we do. We'll ring other places because we all support each other. New Day are brilliant. They'll give us all the leftovers. So we do. Leyland Food Bank are fantastic. We do all work together. I really do not like food waste. It's something that absolutely drives me mad. And because we're one of the last, if you will, to operate on a Friday, if we have any leftover fruit or veg that hasn't been taken by the community then that goes to a local pig farmer. Because nothing should go in the bin, you know, it should all be, I'm digressing there because I feel passionate about food waste, passionate about waste in particular. So yeah, we just, whatever the community is asking us for, we try and meet their needs, whatever it may be. So pantomime, community pantomime, you know, Christmas smiles, the garden, our community garden, we grow fruit and vegetables, which then go into the shop and into the cafe. Sorry, I do witter on.
No, thank you very much for that. I really appreciate that information. Councillor Williams, can I bring you in, please?
Yeah, I was just looking through the presentation from the Citizen Advice, and it's some really, really useful information on there. I was looking at what your clients look like and the demographic of people accessing the services, and I'm quite surprised to see that the top demographics are sort of from age 55 plus to 55 to 69. Seems to be an elder demographic accessing the services, and then I'm just flicking through the type of things that obviously there's death advice or whatever. But looking at benefit access and things like that, PIP seems to be by far and away the highest application managing a claim as part of the benefit side of it. I'm probably making an assumption here. Is it a symptom of people getting older and sicker and not being able to access maybe the NHS to treat things or something like that? Or I would have thought it'd be a fairly even spread of people accessing services. But like you say, when people are working, we're getting towards the end of careers and things like that, where people might be wanting, especially in the 60 to 64 area. It seems to be a real requirement there for, you know, where people should be thinking about thinking about either retiring or not working when they get to state retirement age. It just seems a bit disconcerting that's the biggest demographic that's asking for services. What's driving that in towards the older age group?
Sorry, mic had gone off. Cost of living. We've done a lot of work as Citizens Advice nationally over the last few years about what the drivers are, the barometer for the issues with cost of living, and PIP applications is one of them, because people are looking to how they can increase their income, and if you're ill and you can get a benefit, that's without, I'm not trying to sound odd with this, but it's one way of doing it. You know, it's a way of increasing your income. Quite rightly, if you've got an illness, but I think we've just seen over the last 12 months that the sort of the older end of South Ribble residents are the ones who are making the most contact. If you look at probably household support fund application, then the age group for that will be quite young. You know, I suspect sub 35-year-old. But you know, people are suffering. You know, whether there's just a general increase in people becoming unwell. There's certainly been quite a large increase in mental health issues over the last 5 years. And I suspect, us getting to, or some people getting to, sort of an enforced stay at home for quite a long time didn't do them any good. I was lucky. I only spent a month at home. We were back up and operating within a couple of days of lockdown 1 being announced, and I was back in the office. We were trying to coordinate people, coordinate the volunteers and everything. So I consider myself lucky. I think I'm just going batty in other ways. That's age creeping up on me. Just going back to your original point, this last 12 months has been the older age range. Next year could be completely different. You know, there's no rhyme or reason, really. You know, I suspect we will see a change as if the government gets their way around changes to PIP and around changes to sort of limited capability work around credit, then we may see a shift in the age group, and that age group may be younger that are coming to us because they're likely to be the ones who suffer with, you know, changes to PIP and loss of benefit, that kind of thing. But, you know, you need a crystal ball to be able to tell that at the moment.
Just another thing you mentioned. Another thing you mentioned is talking about lockdown or whatever. Is there still a massive hangover from the COVID era of people either not working? Obviously, the mental health definitely get that aspect, but just, you know, obviously, the COVID era where people couldn't work, businesses struggling and things like that, paying back COVID loans, things like that, and, you know, jobs and that type of thing. Is there still a hangover from the COVID era that may be driving things?
Crikey, good question. There could well be. I think furlough probably did more harm than it did good. From a personal view, I think with the expectation of the general public in what they should be able to have, you know, the government made money available for employers, so, you know, you got 75% of your wages or whatever. We've seen it with Household Support Fund. People, it is a right that the government should give them this money because we can't afford to buy this, so somebody needs to give us the money so we can afford to buy it. And yeah. Yes, there is. I think there is a knock-on from it that people are. We know, you know, people are still struggling with the cost of living crisis. They're still going to struggle with it. So, yeah, nothing is really improving. So, you know, it is still going to be an issue, and that people's perception of the world that they're living in, you know, everyone's different, aren't they? And some people really struggle to cope with life.
Councillor Stringfellow.
Thank you, Chair. Just going back a little way, Andrea mentioned that there was a difficulty getting in touch with people and getting them to respond. You know, they weren't responding to letters which were telling them what they were entitled to or what they may be entitled to. And my sort of question was, have you got any ideas how we could get people to engage or proactive way, could respond to things and actually talk to us or yourselves about how they're coping? Now, Andrea actually answered this partly earlier on by saying, and your hub does an absolutely amazing job, Bannister Drive, but I know that you do have the various organisations come to talk to people at the community centre, and the New Day hub, Day Food Bank. It's not a food bank; it's more like your model of, because I volunteer there every week, and they have the same situation where they invite different organisations to sit on the guest table, talk to residents who are members of the food hub, and help them to talk through their problems. And this is one question. Does that happen in a lot of places in South Ribble? Because I only know of the Broadfield, the base at Broadfield Food Hub. in Lostock Hall, but does that happen that you go out to different areas, different places and talk to people on the ground, or is it quite a rare occurrence? Because it seems to me that that is one way of increasing opportunity for people to find out about yourselves.
I'm not aware of anywhere else, and I think it comes down to being able to successfully work in partnership, knowing what it is your community wants, and having this is going to sound, but you'll get what I mean, having the members there, so that we've got someone from Unified Credit, they're not coming and just sitting there waiting for someone to come in. There's an audience there, so that the engagement's both sides. I think it can work anywhere. I think if more community centres were used in that way, as either a drop-in, or if you're giving someone a cup of tea and a biscuit and a cake, they're going to be very happy to listen to someone that's going to come and talk to them about a way in which that can improve the way in which they live, be it credit union, be it any kind of advice, health, finances, anything. It can work anywhere, but I'm not sure about anywhere else.
I think so. Our community officers tasked with exactly that, and I think finding some easier than others. And I think it speaks to maybe a different approach. And having the three of us sat here tonight is a great example of there is a lot of people doing good work in small pockets. And at any point, if I know who they are, I can probably pick up the phone to them. With the credit union, what we do, can we get along? But actually, what would be better is all in the same places, having that together. Sounds easy to do, but it's actually very hard to. Council say we're going to put together a committee. I think it's important because what we actually have between us is insight into the whole person. I think that's important. Individually, through provisions of everything else, and it's by getting us together. I think one is the collaborate opportunity. How do we together? The other is start to solve problems in a way, because look upriver. What's the actual problem that's causing this person that day? Because, well, loneliness there because they're their only chance that they're struggling with debt. Is getting us all together and comparing notes a huge board, which then creates that. So I might know someone I might have a group really want to get a message that always opening us. I think there's a piece done there, creating the ability to get us all together.
I think that's really positive if you could do that, and almost create a forum where people can come and make an appointment and see everybody at the same time. Good. It also occurred to me that if you're going into places like the New Day Hub or the base, talking to the volunteers as well, particularly about Unify, because a lot of the volunteers might be interested in actually investing, saving with that, whereas, and then they can tell the other, because generally they sit down and chat with the people who come for pick the food up or to have something to eat and drink, and they can be a mouthpiece for you. If you can convince them that this is a good idea, then they can pass that on as well. So I think that word of mouth approach is good as.
I think word of mouth is the best way. It's what the base is founded on, word of mouth, reputation. I think it's a fantastic idea. It's something that we've been wanting to do for a long time. All of us together. We don't know how it's going to look like, how it would work, but we work with Inspire Lancashire because we have quite a problem on our field with addiction. We work with Lancashire women, support women that have just been released from prison. We are really open to as much partnership working as possible. Then we can offer as much support to our community as possible. Don't know what it would look like, but maybe the council could create it.
Can I bring in Councillor Pritchard now?
Thank you. I think I absolutely agree with you on the need for a forum, a financial resilience forum. When we did the inequalities cost report, which went to council recently, one of our recommendations was to look at creating an equalities forum, which I think the financial resilience would sit as part of an umbrella. So we're looking to actively do that, but also to create a Helping South Ribble website. And this would bring information to one point. So if you went on there looking for Unify, for example, but you'd also see all of you guys as well, it would all be there. So people will go to that and it'll be a one-stop shop. I absolutely agree about the literacy and the digital side. That's not going to solve that, but it will help get information out to the wider community. And I think Elaine's point about if the volunteers know about the Helping South Ribble, then when they're talking to their client groups, they can say, let's sit down and let's look at this website. Just as for clarity, I worked for Preston City Council, and that's where we set up Helping Preston, the website. So it's very much about, that's an example that if you wanted to go away and look at, and that started out purely as a financial resilience forum, and then it grew and developed because we realised that there was need for information about food banks and employment and other things. So if you look at the site, you'll see there's several areas now. But I think this is a piece of work that we're definitely looking at as part of the recommendations from the task group. And I just agree with everything Councillor Stringfellow said about trying to get the information down to a level where you've got voices within the community. So I'd be very happy to work with you to create this forum. And I wondered, you've mentioned Inspire, and I'm sure there's lots of other organisations, but do you have any connection at the moment with the Family and Wellbeing Centre in South Ribble?
We do work with the Children and Family Wellbeing Service, not just for domestic abuse, but referring to it. But we are looking, I love the idea of the website, and that we could still make that work because we could sit with people and show them the website and, what is it you're looking for? Well, let's have a look at it with you. I also think that we should do regular pop-up events though, where lots of different organisations together, a little bit like a fair, for want of a better word, so that people can come along and find out, and it's that one-to-one, that face-to-face, that can reassure people that there is support there. But I think the two alongside each other.
Can I bring in Councillor Williams?
Yeah, obviously we've talked about what organisation you work together with. Obviously we work together a lot with South Ribble Borough Council. So when we talk about working with the council, what works well and what doesn't quite work so well? What more support could we to do more work better?
I think for us, we feel extremely lucky, unlucky for you and the base, because South Ribble have always been really supportive to us in terms of financial support, but also in come on, how can we help you make this work? I think looking at the kind of events that we like to do and facilitating them as South Ribble would want to benefit us, because we have our services are funded in different ways. Does that make sense? So it's more that practical organisational support that could benefit us moving forward. For us personally is key and the base. I don't think we could ask very much more of South Ribble they've always been very, very supportive. So more as what's the word I'm looking for? A facilitator. Thank you.
I'd echo that. I think we one-to-one relationship. South Ribble. Very active relationship that allows us to operate well in the area. Yes, it's that facilitation, that one-to-one relationship, but actually part of a wider conversation. That's when we dig in.
I echo what my colleagues have said. We Citizens Advice, we do, and we've had for a long time a really good with South Ribble. We work well together. We try and accommodate, you know, the some of the things we get asked to do. You remember the bus that we had last year that kept breaking down? We were on that as much as we could. We try these things out to see what is going to bring people in. You know, there's a lot of people out there, and it's difficult to engage. A lot of them. It's not through want of trying. You know, maybe that's something that the council as a whole could help us all with. Back to that facilitating.
Councillor Williams.
Yeah, just sort of a follow on from that. I think one of the other questions I got, I think was going to be later on, but it's quite relevant now. Is we've got 5 community hubs that operate across South Ribble. So obviously, Andrew, you're probably aware of Leyland Community Hub, where they do small bits of grant funding. We've got central parishes. We've got the western. We've got the eastern parishes as well, and they work together with the local community and more small local organisations that are based in those particular areas on various different bits and pieces, different issues. Is there any way, do you think community hubs might be able to get more involved in the work? Obviously, passing forward some of those smaller organisations in those smaller areas, letting them know more about your work, or whenever they have events and things like that, passing things on as part of that work, and trying to get into further areas of South Ribble than we're currently in.
In terms of Leyland, I think Joanne, our current officer, is amazing. I think that they're limited. That you know, they're already spread quite thinly, but I definitely think they'd be instrumental in facilitating, you know, a multi-agency, whatever we were going to call it, absolutely. But I do think they're at risk of stretched extremely thinly as it is. But we see Joanne regularly, she's very, very supportive. But yeah, I think more that South Ribble would facilitate and support, and we do the donkey word, better word.
Councillor Jackson.
Or that we could do, or you could do. And could I ask a supplementary, please? You mentioned financial resilience. Race finance. Thinking about money management, children, and habits start early. So is there any connection do you have to schools, colleges, you go out to?
Pick up an easy one. So there's some good history of the credit union working with schools and basically empowering them to start their own credit union.
Yep.
So kids pay into the credit union, and actually they have a credit union account.
Say every Friday.
Yeah. and what that does is it two things. One, it creates some bits of fun at the school. The other is, or the hope is, when they go home, then start to that connection, hearing about the work that we do. It goes back to don't want to just be doing that on our own. That's the set of savings account credit union. As far as it goes, got on that. I think it's financial literacy. It's a whole conversation that's not thought properly into, but we something positive in the way that we work, that go in and that's something our branching.
That really could be a very enjoyable activity for both children. They could be taking that parents, because children become financial around the age of 7. Although I don't know we work it these days, because I have a grandson, he's 9, and his aunties and uncles give him money for birthdays and Christmas. But it's like paper money doesn't really seem that relevant these days. And it's plastic, you can save on plastic. So those considerations would need to be taken into account. Make children regularly save, and if it's only 50p at school. So
Yeah, I think the point you're making is a really important one. We have to embrace is money changing. Don't get the pocket money cash anymore, get it on card. In that dialogue of go back to giving cash, so here's your pocket money, that in the piggy bank, and adapt and change. And this goes to savings account. But it's real challenging banking. That leap from very few people that financial literacy, budgeting, relevant.
Councillor Stringfellow.
I just think that's a really, really good idea. And I can remember when the TSB used to go to school when I was a little girl, and we all had a little book, and everybody used to save. And I think, you know, peer pressure, isn't it? If you go into the schools, children will want to do it because friends are doing it, and then they will take it home to the parents and possibly promote it to them. Not. So yeah, I can remember that. I think that's a really good idea.
Can I just come in, just back to what you were saying and something that Owen mentioned. Years ago, when you lived with cash, you had so much cash at the start of the week, then you had so much cash at the end of the week, and you had to make it last. But you don't see money nowadays, do you? You just scan your phone or you scan your card. Financial literacy, more important in today's society, was because everybody, you know, my parents, they had jars that money went in, you know, saving up car repairs and stuff like that. Whereas, you know, I just have a bank account and my money's sat in that bank account, and I've got some money in savings. But I do think it's more important now than ever.
one more. And getting back to money and making it relevant, maybe in society there should be an element back to something. No, it's there, it's real, because money on plastic too, it's easy to buy too quickly. So for children, you've got to give them some kind of reward too, don't you?
I agree with that completely. And where Broadfield is only shop to take card. So our £2.50 is cash, but we also have, be careful what I say here, clothing and bric-a-brac exchange, where people can come in with 50p and take away an outfit, or for the children, a toy or a pre-loved toy, or they love the teddy bears, and they come in with the pocket money, and it is literally, and it's so lovely because they're like, well, I've got £1, what can I get for that? You know, well, you can have that toy, or you can have 2 of those or 3 of those for the same. and then, oh, really, is that how much I can get? And then looking at, well, do I get change, and counting it out and understanding that whole transaction. And they absolutely love it. And that's their money that they're going into the little shop to spend, not buying sweets, they're buying something that big, tangible, you know, that's going to last, and it's lovely. And it's one of the reasons I love that side of the shop, that side of the base, is the interactions, especially with the children, and you just joy in their face and the counting, and that they're using the skills, because they'll say, oh, well, how much is that, and how much change should, and it's lovely. I don't get enough time to spend in, but I do try and give myself a morning a week.
But that's important, increasing mathematical skills.
Can I sort of put the opposite end of that, which is through the work that we do, we get a lot of where people goes, and your point about see it, don't hold it. There are two real in our community. One is buy now, pay later. So the ability for payment of 3 months. One of these things that it invented purpose and becomes very different. And I would say not unusual 30 and 40 buy now pay accounts at any point, which is horrifying because there's no real checks done on that. A lot of regulation coming. So you walk into places and pay in 3. That's one. The other is online gambling. Just the level of online gambling far too often. I remember when I first started seeing it, thought what we're seeing, when I see it, it isn't. They're the sort of two hidden problems that we're dealing with. How people manage their money goes out. I'd love to move back to cash, but I think it's going in the opposite direction because of actions.
Councillor Pritchard.
Thank you. I agree with you. I don't think we're going to go as much as we would like to. One of the things that I think I'd be really interested to hear your view on, if we're looking at young people and if we're looking at a school setting, there will be some young people who will just not be able to afford to save anything because their parents may have the 40 or 50 account. And I've seen some work with schools whereby it is actually cashless. So the children are given merits, you know. But I just wondered if you had any views on that, because I'm really supportive of working with young people. I think it's the way forward, build that resilience. We do have to be mindful that for some young people in some of our wards, the pressure of being able to try to save at school would be really difficult. And I just wondered what your thoughts would be around that.
We've done some work where we work with third parties who will provide safe incentives. It'll be if will match points are really important, which is all. I like that idea of there's something else that earns that savings, builds up beginnings. When you think about that, I think there's something in there around how do you match? We'll match something, and often third parties benefit match it to something.
The time credit scheme is quite interesting scheme, which is probably relatable to this. And I know Chorley at one point, whether they still do, had a really, really well-functioning time credit scheme. You know, people would do an hour's worth of ironing and they'd get sent out credits, and then that could be a babysitter. So I suppose it's a similar thing, isn't it? But again, I don't know whether that has actually is still going in Chorley. I don't know. It's something we could look into. But they did have quite a lot of success. I think they started off small, but then managed to develop a cashless economy, if that's the right way of putting it. But that is something we could perhaps find out about. Thank you.
Self-Ribble up until recently had worked with time credits, but I love the idea. I think Charlie still do. But I love the idea of like a reward scheme, so they do a good deed or they complete and then they can get something. I think conversations had that could get the support of some.
Thank you very much. Is there any further questions from members of the committee? Councillor Burrows?
Really, it might be nice to end on something to know, but what you've said is really interesting. People doing say that, worked in but it's the future that worries. So I know for the KB, probably have they I know one thing that local authority, because so many volunteer so I am aware that there are 6 grant giving, and I'm just wondering if you're assisted to know about these, to explore them, or specific projects that might fall.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Councillor Burrows, with the funding for projects. As you know, we're very lucky. South Ribble Council will give us an amount of money every year, which allows us to put it towards the cost of running the service. We have funding from Macmillan, where we do their benefits advice for people who had a cancer diagnosis. That funding only pays for the workers that we employ. Can't take any money to cover your running costs. So there are a lot, like Henry Smith Foundation and like that, a lot of funding bodies out there that will only pay for a project and will only pay for the work to be delivered, not the core costs. And no, we can't run a business without covering core costs. Try to keep our costs low, but we're part of National Advice, and we have to pay a certain amount to them every year to use the branding, get the support, to get discounted insurance. We're on, as we probably all are, a number of websites that identify funding on a weekly basis. It's just whether you can apply for it. Been fortunate enough to have a chief exec who's built up your reserves, because it costs a lot to run your business and you want to be able to run for sort of 9 or 12 months with all the funding dried up. Sometimes reserves are too high to put in an application. It's a full-time job that I think gives us all a headache, looking outside local authority money.
I mean, maybe that's something that, as an we could perhaps look at some not quite known funders to come awareness, so that organisations vital. That might be some local authority. Would be a positive.
Right, I've got the last question from committee before I open up to members not on committee that have joined us via Teams. So is there anything that us as a scrutiny committee could do to help your lives, make your lives a bit easier and improve the role that you guys carry out in South Ribble? Is there anything we could do to assist you or help or create awareness about your organisations?
I think the last part is a bit for me, is create awareness. Twofold is working with the council to create the awareness. Also facilitating that, getting together of organisations. But those two things, big enable what we really need from the position we're in at the moment, which has got relatively small, like, around this room, small footprint, South Ribble. We can't materially without significant. So the more support we can get.
Thank you very much. Oh, sorry, go on, Councillor
Is that
Jackson.
okay? Like to, when listening to really just taking away the stigma, benefit and food. You're giving advice, and the credit union too. I'll continue to help where I can personally and spread the message. But thank you very much.
Thank you. Can I now open it up to members not on committee? Anybody got any questions for Andrea, Nick or Owen? No? There's no members of the public here tonight, so there's no questions from the public. I'd just like to thank you, all three of you, for coming here tonight and giving up your time. It's been really appreciated. So thank you very much, Andrea, Nick and Owen. Leave now if you if you'd like to. All right, thank you very much. Darren, could you formulate any recommendations?
Thank you, Chair. Some of the themes of tonight's discussion you might like to recommend include that the committee thanks the representatives of the Citizen Advice Bureau, the base on Broadfield and Unified Credit Union for attending and answering questions. The committee commends the positive work of the partner organisations for their great work in the local community. The committee suggests that further information on the credit union be provided to councillors to promote in their communities, encouraged to join themselves and to promote more to council employees too. The committee asks the council's cabinet member to lobby the government on streamlining and simplifying benefit claim forms. The committee asks that the council works with partners to develop a financial resilience forum to bring organisations together to provide a one-stop opportunity for residents to access information in such a way, such as pop-up events and other activities. The committee welcomes the reassurance that the partners have a positive working relationship with the council. The committee asks that the chair of the community hubs be encouraged to work more with partner organisations to engage with their local communities and residents financial resilience benefits support. The committee considers a rewards and incentive scheme to encourage engagement financial. Finally, the committee asks that the council arrange an external funding session for voluntary faith sector organisations in South.
Thank you all. Thank you. Thank you, Darren. Item 6 on the agenda, committee matters. The Child Sexual Exploitation Review Task Group update. The first meeting of the task group was on Monday the 1st of September. We met to scope the review, and this also included a discussion with Councillor Matt Forshaw. We spoke about the issues that led him to raise the notice of motion and the background behind that. A programme of meetings to meet with key partner agencies and review documentation is being developed. So if anybody's not given Darren the dates they're available for any future meetings, they do so, and Darren will be of us shortly to firm up them dates and get them in the diary. Item 6B, Lancashire County Council Health and... Oh, sorry, Councillor Burrows.
Could I just come? So it was my first working. So I was a bit concerned at some. So Councillor Forshaw was invited to present following on motion. I actually felt uncomfortable because I felt like he was the accused. I felt that somebody a bit. Well, I felt like he was on. One in particular was very uncomfortable. When he was asked, "How would you describe a man?" I felt like piping up. Well, arms, legs.
Sorry, Councillor Burrows. We can't discuss. This was a private meeting that we can't discuss. Sorry.
I'm sorry about that. I didn't. I'm quite. I'll take that.
Can I just bring Councillor Pritchard in, please?
I was at that meeting and that word was not used. There were other people at that meeting. I'll move on from that, but that word was not used at all.
Yeah, let's move on now.
Thank you for clarifying that, though.
Yeah, Councillor Pritchard, thanks for that.
Sorry.
Item 6B, Lancashire County Council Health and Adult Services Scrutiny Committee update. Darren's kindly circulated the document, but Councillor Jackson, talk us through it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, because so much information, it really helps. You need to know more detail that's available for you. So good evening. I would like to present a summary of the Lancashire County Council Health and Adult Scrutiny held at LCC on the 24th of September 2025. Picking out the main points for you. The meeting discussed, or a little bit of history, because there's been a lot of change at Lancashire County Council, as we all know. So back in May, the Constitution and Terms of Reference was agreed for the year 25-26 and approved at full council on the 22nd of May 2025. It approved the appointment of Nigel Swales, County Councillor Nigel Swales as chair, and County Councillor Hamish Mills as deputy chair of the committee. It approved the membership of the committee with the terms of reference of the above committee. And at this point, it's worthy to note that County Councillor Nigel Swales is Reform, County Councillor Hamish Mills is Progressive Lancashire, County Councillor M. Jewell, Liberal Democrat, County Councillor Freitas, Conservative. Also on the committee, the district councillors were confirmed, the district councillor nominees. So getting back to the 24th of September, the CQC, the local authority, gave a local authority update provided by Helen Coombs, Executive Director of Adult. Summary of the LCC Care and Quality Commission assessment report, including outcome and next steps, was provided. A reminder that the CQC serves as an independent regulator for health and social care services in England, and its main responsibility is to ensure individuals receive safe, compassionate and high quality care, whilst encouraging continuous improvement across services. In 2024, the CQC began a work plan to assess all English local authorities responsible for adult social care. The evaluation focuses on how each local authority meets its obligation under Part 1 of the Care Act 2014, specifically focusing on areas of assessing need, providing support, safeguarding, leadership and governance. Using national and local performance indicators and 10 cases selected for detailed examination. This provides a direct discussion with residents and their families who are using the services, and the culmination is a 3-day on-site assessment, interviewing staff, political leaders and senior staff. Upon completion, the CQC assign a ratings organisation. Could be outstanding, it could be good, it could be requires improvement, or overall to receive an additional support and oversight of the Department of Health and Social Care. The Lancashire County Council was notified in early August 2025 that it had received a rating of requires improvement, which was disappointing. CQC, however, highlighted the strong foundation, remarkable commitment of the force. The CQC findings are fully accepted by the Council, and steps are already being taken to address issues identified to bring swifter support to improve outcome, a more personalised experience. There was also a report of the NHS vascular services provided by Dr. Andy Curran, who's the Associate Medical Director of Lancashire and South Cumbria ICB. The report discussed the reconfiguration of vascular services in Lancashire and South Cumbria, which is based on 2 centres providing services across the region. The paper highlights the need for change due to population size, increased demand, and the need of a network model as recommended by the national guidelines. The proposed model would include establishing a Lancashire and South Cumbria and Wigan vascular network hosted by Lancashire Teaching Hospital Foundation, with a single dedicated arterial centre, Royal Preston. The model aims to create a sustainable specialist network that focuses on a single centre of excellence, ensuring that outpatients, day cases, diagnostics. Outlined was the benefits, which were put to us as improved patient outcomes, reduction in variation, and access to quality, enhanced training also, and career development and opportunities for staff. After discussion of the committee, there was a vote to whether the programme would represent a significant service change. It was decided at the meeting that it would represent a significant service change, and the committee formed the opinion of the need for a period of public consultation prior to implementing. I also give a short summary of what's been happening on the Council of Governors. As a Governor, I'm pleased to give this following update. On the 8th of August, there was a Governor's training discussing the annual year plan, and on the 23rd of September, I attended a joint board of directors Governor meeting. And the aim was to increase the working relationship between governors and NEDs, which are non-executive directors. We brainstormed firm and practical contributions that will be included in the Lancashire and South Cumbria Hospitals 5-year plan, strategic plan. Since the government's NHS 10-year plan, the hospitals vitally are considering how they're going to apply the plan to processes and practices. I had the opportunity at the 5-year plan strategic meeting to give a live experience. 4 months ago, I was admitted as an emergency to the hospital. I was admitted as Lucine, I wasn't Lou Jackson, I wasn't a councillor, and I wasn't a governor. But I experienced waiting and corridor care for 18.5 hours. So when I recovered, I was thinking, well, how can this experience be improved until the NHS 10-year plan, 5-year plan could be put in place? Because just there, patients are experiencing it in this long corridor. People are really ill. An instance was one side of me, patient vomiting. These people, we're people who have been admitted, but we're waiting for a bed. And at the other side, there was somebody. In the facilities, I met a lady and she was suffering from a subarachnoid hemorrhage, bleeding on the brain. Came out of the facilities and she collapsed in front of me. It was really drastic. We need some improvements, you know, until things can change for the better. And they will be changed for the better. And I can't commend the nurses and doctors who worked under such difficult circumstances. But little things like not full tall screens, but screens that could just be slotted in place between each patient that will provide dignity and decency if people are vomiting. And people are ill who are not vomiting, but they're shaded from seeing these things happening by the side. They've got their own little space. Also in the middle of the night, for families, there was not a lot of food to be provided. The shops are shut in the middle of the night. The machine that might just give a little bit of food ordering wasn't working. Or waste bins overflowing that didn't add to the experience. So I was able to talk to the directors and say, well, this is the experience on the ground. Hopefully you'll be able to incorporate personal experience of all of us into your because meetings are very strategic. There's lots of certain kinds of speak, but it's people at the ground level, how can we improve at the ground? So with dignity and decency. Let's see. So coming up, in a few days' time, I'll go to a Governor Observer meeting and later on a tour of catering services. So thank you, that's my report.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jackson. Really appreciate that. Councillor Williams.
I'm not sure this is particularly relevant. Obviously, it might be relevant. Obviously, because you're a member of the LCC Health and Audit, Health and Adult Services Scrutiny Committee. I received an email back in the middle of September. I'm not sure whether the councils received it from the Communications and Engagement Officer at the Integrated Care Board that relates to patient transport services. Quite why I got this particular email, I really don't know. I thought all councils might have received it. Basically, it's a letter that gives a background, basically, on non-emergency patient transport services, and it's such as outpatient activity, travel to appointments, on-the-day activity charges from discharges from hospital, and for cancer and dialysis patients. And it goes on to say that the contracts for patient transport were originally started in 2015 and supposed to end 2020, but got extended because of the COVID period, 2023. Contract extensions were put into 2025 to allow more competitive tendering or whatever. It seems there's been some issues with some of the competitive tendering, and in the meantime, And as part of the new tender, there's increasing the hours of when this service is going to operate. So these services can't operate until these new tenders are in place. So, and apparently there's issues with either tenders that have been put out, which have been put out wrongly. There's all sorts of issues around it. And apparently they're going through the whole process all over again to re-tender this. So, this is effectively 5 years late. Going on. And in the meantime, there's an amount of money that's been spent on legal challenges and all sorts to do with it. And it just seems ridiculous that a patient transport service could wait this long to be tendered, and in the meantime patients are suffering and needless money has been spent. So I'm just wondering whether it's something that should be brought to health scrutiny for them to examine, because I think a 5 year delay in getting a a 2 year delay in getting a new contract and having to go through the whole tender exercise again just wastes everybody's time, everybody's money, and it's not improving services. That's something that could be.
Yeah, is that something you could share with the committee, and then is that something you could bring up, Councillor Jackson, at the next meeting?
I'd be happy to do that. Just one little bit of information. There was a free bus did come up at LCC Scrutiny for the benefit of the patients that used to circulate from Preston. I don't know whether it went to Chorley, Leyland, whatever, but that has been stopped now. I'll see about these contracts, what I can find out for you, report back.
Brilliant, thank you very much. That's really appreciate it. Any further questions from any members? No. Moving on to item 6C, meeting and training attended by Scrutiny Committee members. I'd like to remind everyone there's training on Thursday evening with Dr. Steph Snape, looking at how to scrutinise local government reorganisation and different models of carrying out scrutiny reviews. And Councillor Pritchard is presenting a case study on the committee's review into inequalities costs as an example of evidence-led scrutiny at the North West Strategic Scrutiny Network next week. What date's that, Darren? On the 8th, that's Wednesday the 8th of October. Yeah, I think, can you request, if Darren will circulate something, you can request attendance at that meeting. We'll all be watching. But that shows the brilliant work that the committee, the task groups carried out, Councillor Pritchard. Item 6D, we did talk about this in the pre-meeting regarding adding the water quality item onto the March meeting, and everybody seemed to agree that that's a good idea, so that's what we'll be doing. Okay, brilliant. That's the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for everybody for attending. Thank you very much.